When her brother sold her car without permission, she felt the betrayal slice deeper than words could carry. To him, it was nothing more than a transaction, quick money for his own convenience. To her, it was years of sacrifice, every midnight shift, every penny saved, every tear held back just to earn that freedom. She didn't scream. She didn't demand answers. She simply nodded, her silence more cutting than any outburst. Inside, though, she was already building something he would never see coming. He mistook her quiet for weakness. When he strutted into the kitchen days later, humming as if he'd done no wrong, she simply smiled. A slow, unsettling smile that made him falter for a second before his arrogance returned. She let him believe he had won, that her silence was submission, that she was too meek to stand up for herself. But behind that smile, her thoughts moved like sharpened glass, cutting a path toward revenge. That car had not been just a machine. It had carried her through freezing dawns when buses stopped running, through nights when she worked double shifts just to pay tuition, through the lonely hours when the only thing she owned in the world was the steering wheel beneath her hands. Every mile was etched with determination. Every dent carried a story. Losing it wasn't just losing transportation. It was losing proof of her resilience. And her brother had traded it away as if it meant nothing. That insult wouldn't stand. She pictured the dealership where the car now sat under fluorescent lights, polished for resale. The thought didn't sting. It fueled her. She could already imagine standing in that same showroom, her brother's smugness evaporating when the truth cornered him. Every detail of that future confrontation began forming in her mind like a blueprint, sharp and deliberate. He thought the matter closed, that her silence meant surrender. But beneath her composed exterior, she began threading her plan together. Every evening she studied receipts, traced phone calls, and read legal fine print by the glow of her desk lamp. While he flaunted his winnings, she sharpened her resolve, a predator waiting for the exact moment to strike. His arrogance blinded him. At family dinners, he smirked as if daring her to speak. His laughter was louder, his gestures broader, each one dripping with the certainty that she'd never challenge him. But that smugness was his weakness. It made him reckless, careless with details he should have kept hidden. He didn't notice how closely she was watching. Bit by bit, she gathered the trail. The forged signature, the dealership's receipt, even the salesman's memory of her brother bragging about the sale. Every piece fit neatly into her collection, an arsenal he never suspected she was building. She tucked the evidence away with quiet precision, each document a thread tightening around him. It didn't take long for his carelessness to betray him further. Boasting to a friend about how he'd taught her a lesson by selling what she loved most, he exposed cracks in his story. She overheard enough, pieced together enough to know the time was drawing near. His confidence wasn't just annoying, it was ammunition. By the time she finished, the stage was perfect. Every witness lined up, every document prepared, every truth sharpened into a weapon. The dealership would be the place, the spotlight where his lies would unravel. She didn't need to lure him. His own overconfidence would lead him there. The day came, and she walked into that dealership with a calmness that disguised the storm inside her. Her brother's grin faltered when he saw her standing there, papers in hand, eyes unwavering. In front of strangers, in front of staff, she unfolded the truth piece by piece, not with rage, but with a measured calm that made her words undeniable. His lies, once so grand, shrank into silence under her composure. He tried to interrupt, to salvage dignity, but the weight of evidence crushed every excuse. His pride, once a shield, shattered in the face of witnesses watching him unravel. The salesman confirmed her account, the documents confirmed his fraud, and the humiliation spread across his face like fire. He wasn't just caught, he was destroyed, and when it was over, she didn't gloat. She didn't raise her voice or throw his betrayal back at him. She simply turned and walked out, leaving him to choke on the ruins of his arrogance. Her silence had been her sharpest weapon, and it had cut deeper than fury ever could. Outside, the air felt different, lighter. She hadn't just reclaimed justice, she had reclaimed herself. What he thought was a weakness had become her greatest strength. She no longer needed the car to prove her resilience. The victory itself was enough. Success, quiet and undeniable, had delivered the final blow. And as she walked away, one truth settled firmly in her heart. Silence was never surrender. It was the storm gathering before the strike. Her brother had sold the car without a word, treating it as though it were just another object to pawn for his convenience. To him, it was nothing more than a quick profit, a minor thrill. To her, it was the culmination of long nights, endless shifts, and relentless sacrifices. She didn't yell. She didn't storm around in fury. Instead, she held still, a quiet storm simmering beneath the surface. The shock of betrayal cut deep, but she let it sharpen her focus rather than scatter it. At home, the divide between them had always been subtle but unmistakable. Her parents excused his recklessness with a shrug, praising his charm while dismissing her meticulous effort. That favoritism had fueled years of quiet resentment, yet it had also made her strategic. She had learned to move unseen, to calculate each step while others underestimated her. The injustice she endured didn't crush her. It honed her patience, her ability to wait for the right moment. Clues began to emerge in small, almost imperceptible ways. Papers she had filed were missing. Phone calls with unusual gaps hinted at conversations she wasn't privy to. A nagging sense of observation took hold. She began to notice patterns in his behavior, small lapses that seemed innocuous but hinted at deeper deception. Every detail mattered, and she watched with the patience of someone who had learned the weight of timing. Gradually, the pieces began to fit together. A casual remark here, a contradiction there, all pointing to his manipulation and his sense of entitlement. He didn't just sell the car. He assumed no consequences would follow, that the family would continue to shield him. She cataloged each inconsistency mentally, understanding the breadth of his arrogance, and began mapping the extent of the lies he had built around himself. Every interaction became a performance. She wore the calm facade as a mask, smiling in response to his boasts and playing along with his delusions of safety. Each word she spoke was measured, every reaction calculated. While he believed he had silenced her, she was learning the terrain, analyzing his weaknesses, and preparing for a decisive strike that he could never anticipate. Her preparation wasn't impulsive. It was methodical. She studied contracts, ownership documents, dealership protocols, knowledge that would give her leverage when the moment came. Every detail she absorbed strengthened her position, arming her with information he would never suspect she possessed. Understanding the rules of the game was her invisible weapon. Step by step, she positioned herself strategically. Every inquiry she made, every conversation she steered, subtly manipulated the narrative toward a single, inevitable outcome. Her brother remained blind to the trap forming around him, too secure in his false confidence to notice how carefully the pieces were aligning. Each of his movements brought him closer to exposure, though he believed he was untouchable. As she observed, he grew bolder, careless with the details she had been tracking. His overconfidence became a beacon for her, revealing mistakes he didn't even realize he was making. Every boast, every slip, added to the mounting proof, tightening the net that would eventually ensnare him. The tension built slowly, each day an exercise in patience, every misstep feeding her strategy. The moment arrived with quiet inevitability. Timing, preparation, and precision converged perfectly, and the stage was set for her to act. She didn't rush. She didn't panic. Every element she had cultivated, evidence, witnesses, understanding of the legalities, was in place, waiting for the exact instant when it would have maximum impact. When she moved, it was with measured authority. Each revelation landed like a blow, dismantling his web of lies piece by piece. He tried to respond, to salvage his pride, but her calm control left no space for escape. The truth unfolded with quiet, undeniable force, stripping him of the arrogance that had shielded him for so long. The consequences were immediate. His confidence, once his armor, crumbled under scrutiny. Friends and family witnessed his unraveling, and the evidence she had collected left him powerless to argue. Every misdeed was exposed, every falsehood catalogued, and he had nowhere to hide. The downfall he never imagined became inevitable, built entirely from his own hubris. In the aftermath, she emerged untouched by anger, her dignity intact. Justice had been served not through confrontation, but through patience, strategy, and unwavering focus. She walked away stronger, her strength no longer defined by the battles she avoided, but by the ones she had meticulously won. The silence that had once been mistaken for submission was revealed as her most formidable weapon, and in that quiet triumph, she found not only vindication, but freedom. The first whispers of deception arrived subtly, like shadows crossing her peripheral vision. Papers she had filed with care were gone, replaced by blank spaces on the shelves where they had always rested. Odd phone calls interrupted her evenings, and she caught fragments of conversations that didn't make sense. Nothing overt, nothing she could confront him with, yet enough to plant the seed of suspicion, a nagging sense that the truth was hiding just beyond her reach. She didn't react immediately. Instead, she observed quietly, letting every irregularity settle in her mind like pieces of a puzzle only she could see. With careful hands, she began collecting evidence. Car titles, insurance documents, recorded calls, each item was a thread, fragile but essential, woven into a tapestry that would eventually reveal the full scope of his deception. She cataloged everything methodically, storing it away in an organized sequence that left no gap for doubt. Every slip he made, every overconfident boast she caught on tape, added weight to a case that would soon be unshakable. Knowledge became her secret weapon. She spent hours researching dealership procedures, ownership transfer laws, and the legal implications of fraudulent sales. Each regulation she absorbed became a tool, each technicality a potential blade to pierce the shield of his arrogance. By understanding the system he had tried to exploit, she prepared herself to strike with precision, ensuring no loophole could save him. As she delved deeper, memories of the past surfaced, his small betrayals, the lies dismissed as youthful mistakes, moments where his entitlement had already shown its teeth. These recollections weren't mere nostalgia. They were red flags, warnings that now sharpened her strategy. She saw patterns she hadn't noticed before, a trail of arrogance and manipulation that had led to this moment. It strengthened her resolve and reminded her that his carelessness was habitual. Her brother, meanwhile, was oblivious to the storm brewing around him. He flaunted the quick cash he'd earned from selling the car, bragging to friends and mocking her supposed naivety. Each smug remark, each careless laugh was being recorded, not just in memory, but in the evidence she had meticulously compiled. His arrogance blinded him to the fact that every boast was another nail in his coffin. She never let him see her strategy. Every step was deliberate, every observation calculated. She coordinated the timing, the location, and the sequence of actions, ensuring her move would land with devastating clarity. The plan wasn't impulsive. It was surgical, each element reinforcing the next. She imagined the moment of revelation with a calm certainty, knowing the structure of her strategy left no room for error. Patience became her closest ally. Days passed as she watched him move through his routines, unaware that every action drew him closer to the trap. She learned to read the rhythm of his arrogance, waiting for the precise alignment of opportunity. The tension in the air was almost tangible, a quiet hum of anticipation that only she acknowledged, knowing it would culminate in a moment neither of them could forget. Every small detail was carefully laid out, foreshadowing the moment when his world would shift. His casual confidence, the smiles he assumed were unchecked victories, all pointed toward the coming collapse. She didn't need to force the reveal. The stage had been set, and the audience of consequences was already in place. The inevitability of his shock was embedded in the precision of her plan. By the time he realized what she had been orchestrating, it would already be too late. Each move she made, each record she had gathered, every legal nuance she had mastered, ensured that the moment of exposure would arrive, not as a surprise, but as an inescapable reckoning. He was blind to it now, but the clock was ticking, and when it struck, there would be no escape from the consequences he had so recklessly invited. His smugness was effortless, the kind that comes from someone convinced they are untouchable. He bragged about the quick money he'd earned from selling the car, boasting to anyone who would listen, completely oblivious to the fact that he had overlooked key paperwork and ignored signatures that could unravel everything. Every careless word, every casual boast, left cracks in his otherwise confident facade. He had become a portrait of overconfidence, and she studied him silently, noting each imperfection, each vulnerability hidden beneath his arrogance. She moved quietly, methodically. Alerts to the dealership were made with precision, legal documents were secured and reviewed, and every detail of the fraudulent sale was mapped in her mind. Nothing was left to chance. She orchestrated each step as a master strategist would, anticipating his reactions and ensuring that when the moment came, the net would close around him flawlessly. Every action was deliberate, every conversation a calculated move to position herself for ultimate control. Her strategy unfolded like a game of chess. Each interaction, each phone call, each tiny maneuver nudged him closer to exposure without him ever suspecting it. He was so focused on his assumed victory that he never saw the way she was guiding him, manipulating the narrative so that his arrogance would betray him. Every piece fell into place perfectly, building toward a moment he would never foresee. She let him weave his own rope, flaunting his winnings, mocking her supposed inattention. Each boast, each display of careless pride, tightened the web around him. By pretending ignorance, by allowing him freedom to show his hand, she ensured that the trap would be self-inflicted. His overconfidence became the engine of his own downfall, and she waited patiently, letting him tighten the noose with each misstep. The inevitability of his fall settled around her like cold steel. The very papers he had signed without care, the contracts he had dismissed as trivial, were now the instruments of his undoing. Every overlooked clause, every falsified signature, became evidence as precise as it was damning. The noose was ready, and by the time he realized the extent of her preparation, there would be no escape. Justice would arrive not through anger, but through the relentless precision of her plan, and his downfall would be as absolute as it was deserved. She entered the dealership with a measured calm that belied the storm beneath her composed exterior. Every step was deliberate, every glance purposeful, as if the very air around her bent to the weight of her quiet determination. The room hummed with ordinary activity, unaware that beneath the veneer of routine, a reckoning was about to unfold. Her brother's casual confidence, so apparent from the start, would soon collide with a reality he had never imagined, and she felt the subtle thrill of inevitability settle in her chest. When she produced the papers, her movements were smooth, unhurried, and precise. The manager, already briefed and positioned, watched silently as her brother's smug expression faltered. Questions rose in his eyes, a flicker of doubt brushing across his features, but he could not yet form the words to defend himself. Each document she held, the ownership transfers, the insurance records, the proof of his manipulations, was a hammer striking at the fragile edifice of his overconfidence. One by one, the lies unraveled. Forged signatures, misrepresented sales, recordings of him boasting and dismissing her intelligence. Each piece of evidence fit together perfectly, revealing a truth he could no longer deny. His attempts to retort were clumsy and incoherent, his voice wavering under the weight of undeniable facts. She remained composed, her voice calm and deliberate, letting the evidence speak with a force stronger than anger or accusation could ever muster. As the reality settled in, his confidence shattered. What had once been an arena of his dominance turned into a courtroom of judgment. Every boast, every mocking word from the past, now reflected back on him under public scrutiny. The manager's steady acknowledgement of the records, the clear sequence of legal proof, and her unwavering presence transformed the moment from confrontation into exposure. His smugness evaporated, replaced by a palpable humiliation that neither excuses nor explanations could repair. By the time the confrontation ended, he finally understood. The car, the quick profit, the assumed advantage, they had never been the point. She had never been the fool he thought he could manipulate. Her calm, calculated approach had not only revealed his deception, but demonstrated a truth he could no longer ignore. Underestimating her had been his gravest mistake. With his reputation in ruins and her dignity intact, she walked away, not triumphant in vindictiveness, but victorious in the quiet strength of a justice long earned. The consequences arrived like a silent, unyielding tide. Every call from authorities, every notice from the dealership, every whisper of legal trouble chipped away at the fortress of arrogance he had built. His smirks and bravado evaporated as debts mounted, reputations crumbled, and acquaintances he once counted on distanced themselves. The very lies he had relied upon now ensnared him, each misstep echoing louder in a chorus of inevitable accountability. Public scrutiny pierced through his arrogance, leaving him exposed, fragile and cornered, unable to deny the weight of his actions. Authorities demanded explanations. The dealership insisted on restitution. Contracts were scrutinized, sales verified, and every fraudulent signature meticulously documented. His attempts to negotiate, to minimize, to charm, fell flat against a wall of unassailable proof. The world he had so carelessly flaunted crumbled, leaving him not just financially vulnerable, but publicly humiliated. Each moment reinforced the truth. Deception carries a price, and this price was his to pay in full. Amid the chaos, she moved with unshakable calm. Where he panicked and faltered, she operated with precision, retrieving what was rightfully hers. The car, a symbol of her labor, her perseverance, and her rightful ownership, was restored without haste, without dramatics. Compensation, where necessary, papers formally signed and validated, her victory was methodical, devoid of rash triumph. Her intelligence had carried the day. Anger had never needed to step in. The contrast could not have been sharper. He, isolated, embarrassed, and financially depleted, confronted the full measure of his arrogance. She, composed and steady, reclaimed her dignity, untouched by the chaos he had created. Every lesson she had learned, every careful observation, every patient maneuver culminated in this undeniable balance of justice. He had underestimated her, and now, stripped of power, he faced the reality of that grave miscalculation. In the end, the world realigned to reflect the truth she had quietly enforced. The car was hers, the compensation secured, and her autonomy restored. She did not gloat. She simply walked forward with a quiet certainty, the weight of control once denied now fully reclaimed. In the stillness of her victory, she thought, in the end, I didn't just take back my car, I took back control.